Hello YouTube, it's Saturday, November something, and I'm going to make comfort food. Kale soup. I stole the recipe from my sister, who stole it from somebody else, who knows where it came from. But of course it requires kale. The recipe calls for 1 or 2 bunches. Bunches. I'm using a pound. It requires a few potatoes. The recipe again is vague. It says 1, 2, 3, or 4. I'm using 3. I'm using red potatoes because I like the creamy texture of them. I'm throwing in some celery, which the recipe does not call for. I'm also adding garlic, which isn't mentioned, but you put garlic in everything. It also says to use, I think, 2 or 3 carrots or something like that. 2 or 3 baby carrots? I don't think so. But that's all I have. So it's that many, which is exactly 6.9 ounces. Make a note. Dice up the celery. Get it out of your way. Cut the carrots into bite-sized hunks, whatever you consider bite-size. Get back there! Did I miss any? I don't think so. Get them out of the way. Now mince up the garlic. Lots of it. Yum. Next step, assemble. 2 cups of beef broth, 2 cups of chicken stock. I'm using my homemade turkey stock. Heat that up to the boil. And when it reaches the boil, dump in the taters. And the carrots. And the celery. Trying not to splash it all over the place. And I'm adding maybe a half a teaspoon of Slap Your Mama, because I want to. I bring that all back to the boil, cover it, and let it simmer for about 20 minutes until the potatoes go soft. And of course add the garlic that you forgot to add. Carry on. Now after about 20 minutes, you want to mash up some of the potatoes. You don't have to really mash everything. try a different approach. Fork it. Hot. What you're trying to do with this is simply thicken the broth by spoon. So you don't really need to pulverize it. Just smush. And when you get tired of playing with it, fish out the spoon. Ow! And start adding the kale. Unless you have a really big pot, you may have to add it a little at a time, because it starts large and gets a whole lot smaller as it cooks. So fill the pot, cover it and let it think for a few minutes. Come back and add more. And after it's shrunk a little, see if you can get the rest of it in. Without spilling it everywhere. Get in there. Okie dokie. Cover it. Bring it back to the boil and let it cook now for about an hour or so until the kale is as tender as you would like it. It can go for a couple hours and not hurt a thing. Now after 10-15 minutes or so, you can see that it's starting to cook way down, and it's actually starting to look like soup. It smells great. But we're not even close to done yet. So surely you've been asking yourselves, what? No cholesterol? Well, we're about to take care of that. I've got about 1/4 pound of kielbasa that I need to use up, and I'm going to use about 1/2 of this pound of smoked sausage. Alrighty, now before I throw it in the soup, I want to brown it, both to add to the flavor and to render out some of the fat. Well, a little of it. Okay, maybe not much of it. So in a hot skillet, add just a sprinkle of EVOO just to get it started. Dump it all in. And just brown it lightly. You two get away from each other. None of that. I said, none of that. Shame on you. And when it's got some nice brown to it, down here, drain at least some of the fat off of it. and dump it in. Now it's looking like serious soup. Now this is about at the half-hour mark. So we'll let it go another half hour and test it. Now after an hour or so, it should look something like this. And the aroma is fantastic. Making sure that the kale is tender to your taste, and you consider it done. Then you add, this is optional, a can of diced tomatoes with the juice. Get in there, juice. I've done it with and without, and I like it both ways. Take your pick. And once that spends a few minutes coming back up to temperature, you can consider it done. Next, now what better to go with a hearty soup like this than hush puppies? I've done this recipe before. It's actually my favorite. I'll put a link to it down in the description. And it goes like this. Get the oil up to 375 or so. They don't take long. So don't get ahead of yourself. I have found, by the way, that this batter keeps in the fridge really well for at least a few days. So you can make a batch and just put it away for the next day. Okay. And this ought to be enough for a first helping. Ladle in some soup. And this is one of those soups that has goodness in every bite. And it will warm your soul on a cold winter day. Alright, it's enough. It will also probably require at least 2 bowls. And I call it dinner.